number 9 Arkansas's SEC opening loss, 60-57 at LSU. If you're hanging in here after a long day of Razorback sports, the football team overcomes a comeback and officiating for a triple overtime win, and then Arkansas looked like in basketball it might find a way to get to overtime, but loses its SEC opener. Arkansas is not a very good team traditionally in SEC play out of the gates. Even before Eric Musselman, it's been a poor starting team under Eric Musselman. And it's also been, obviously, before that, Arkansas would have its struggles in opening league play. But welcome to Hogvillenet YouTube Live. These are always better after a win. Arkansas drops now after 7 straight wins, drops to, 11-2 on the season, 0-1 out of the gates of the SEC play. LSU, who I thought Arkansas really took the bait on the way LSU wanted to dictate things tonight. I thought Arkansas hurt itself more than anything LSU did, but that happens in sports. But LSU's the team now at 12-1 and 1-0 in SEC play. This is a hard-playing team, a well-coached team. I didn't think LSU's non-conference schedule was very challenging. Arkansas's was much more so, even though Arkansas wasn't a great schedule. It was better than in the past in non-conference. No true road games unless you count the Texas exhibition game, which turned into a debacle. That was in late October, so it'd been a while. And, that was a packed house back then. So I thought Arkansas might have some advantage with that, plus the 9 other going back to Europe games played away from home. But I thought Arkansas looked like a team that was tentative and scared on the road. It played that way, in my opinion. And this is I'm getting kind of comment here, but I'm not sure what it is. Okay, so at any rate, several things from this game that stand out to me, and I'm going to start with the 3-point shooting. Arkansas was 0 of 13 in the first half. They improved, if you want to call it that, to 4 of 12 in the second half. The problem here is you finished 4 of 25. And one of the strengths of this team, in my opinion, has been not taking threes, minimizing the attempts. Arkansas has been outstanding defensively guarding the 3 line, keeping teams down to 5 makes per game, keeping them under 29% from 3. That was great. LSU was 4 of 17. Same amount of makes, 8 fewer takes. But the problem is Arkansas has been good at minimizing its own because it's not the strength of the Razorbacks game. And they just didn't do it tonight. LSU played a zone. I didn't think LSU zone was that good. Left guys open, daring them. And you saw the Razorbacks take the bait, taking early shot clock threes, guys that aren't very good percentage-wise, and even the ones that typically are better getting to the basket, and they weren't patient. And so you can't just not take threes, but I thought Arkansas taking 25 in this game, big mistake there. I think one of the other things that really hurt Arkansas was the free throw line. Only 10 attempts, 5 of 10. LSU goes 6 of 12, both teams 50%. But in a game like this, you have 1 fewer make. And down the stretch of the game, Arkansas was 2 of 5 in the last 2.5 minutes at the line. One of those was a Ricky Council miss on the front end and a 1-and-1. So effectively, you went 2 for 6 because you never got that free throw. You didn't go 2 for 6, but you missed an opportunity. It's like a missed free throw because you didn't get it. And that's a chance for points. And each time these situations played out in the last 2.5 minutes, Arkansas was either down 2 or 1. So they couldn't quite get over the hill again at that point once they, there was that run that, put LSU back in the lead after Arkansas went up by 6, kind of in the late stages there. So, this is a game that I don't know how much Arkansas is really going to learn from this, other than, maybe this is the last time we see Arkansas attempt 25 three-pointers in a game. This is league play. This is the road. This is the stuff we saw against North Carolina at Greensboro, a mid-major at home for Arkansas just a few weeks ago, taking the bait, not challenging the zone with smart play, but hoisting up threes. And Arkansas had to scratch out a 7-point win in a game that it trailed a lot. Now you go on the road, and that's your formula. So I think some of that's on the coaches as well. I think the coaching staff has to take ownership in that. We missed some critical free throws. I mentioned that. Council had called a timeout at the end. That's a situation where he attacked 1-on-4. I don't know that he didn't get fouled, but in a game like that where there weren't that many whistles for fouls. I think the other thing is when we talk about turnovers, both teams had 10 turnovers, but Arkansas was -9 in points off turnovers. So their live ball turnovers fed LSU, and Arkansas was not really able to capitalize. So they were -9 in points off turnovers. Each team had 10. I think another thing is LSU was +4 in points in the paint. This is typically an Arkansas strength. And this wasn't about LSU having a big man doing work down low and Arkansas coming up short. LSU's guards and wings and big men were driving and getting easy driving angles. Arkansas had angles to cut off drives and just didn't. They yielded those. And to me, that's also coaching, is I've got to think some of that was part of the game plan. And when it's not working, you change that. Normally, Eric Melsman does a great job at halftime of making adjustments. I thought Arkansas got beat off the first step too often. And when they looked like they could get to a spot to cut off a drive, they didn't. They Matador. So that was interesting. I thought that was very interesting. What played into LSU's favor in this game for this team to win. And I think Arkansas, when you look at the only the 10 turnovers, it felt like 25 because a lot of those 3-point shots were like turnovers early in shot clocks. You knew a lot of them looked ugly too. They weren't close. So you had that. Those felt like turnovers. And then on top of that, I thought Arkansas really missed some opportunities in transition on some of their drives when they did try to penetrate. I'm gonna pick on Ricky Council a little bit, not to be ugly here, but I thought he looked more like the Ricky Council in Europe and against Texas, where he really had a hard time controlling the ball on his drives. He was maybe, I don't know if he was nervous or what it was, but he wasn't tight with those handles. And so a lot of possessions that didn't technically end in a turnover, it was like one because Arkansas couldn't get to a finish and the play got disrupted. Some of it was just unforced, just poor ball handling. I thought Arkansas had chances to get an advantage on their defender, and then would have a change of pace or a crossover, and let the defense reset. And I didn't understand that some of the time. So some of the stuff that Arkansas was really good at, playing to the strengths, getting downhill, I think they took themselves out of some of those opportunities more so than what LSU was doing. I'm going to give LSU some credit too, but I thought Arkansas played down. I don't know how good this LSU team is from a talent standpoint. I really thought Arkansas should have won this game, but we know how it is in sports. Sometimes the teams with the better players don't always win. I thought LSU's game plan obviously was excellent. I don't think Arkansas's adjustments, and I don't think the way Arkansas played position basketball was very smart in this game. We look at Mekhi Mitchell. I thought Mekhi struggled. He looked like Mekhi from Europe. Going to pick on Mekhi just a little bit. There were opportunities for him to have some clean finishes around the basket. He would turn the wrong way or make an easy shot tougher, maybe try to put the ball on the floor when he didn't need to, turn the wrong direction, get in an awkward position. So I thought Arkansas, that's a good word, awkward. I thought Arkansas was awkward most of the night and brought that pain onto itself, in my opinion, more so than what LSU was doing. Now, I think one of the positives I saw tonight was the continued I'm going to say this journey in the last 4 or 5 games of Jordan Walsh stepping up his game. All 13 of his points in the second half, 9 rebounds, a couple of blocks, a couple of steals. He had a possession where he forced 2 held balls, just battling, scrapping for 50-50 balls. Jordan Walsh had a nice finish at the basket where he probably got fouled. He didn't dunk it, but it looked like it was a dunk. Hit another play where he drove from the left wing, got into the paint, had a nice spin move, and then finished left off the glass. A little runner to start the second half from about 15 feet as he kind of curled into the paint and had a little runner. He hit a 3. He was 1 of 8 from 3. Nobody shot the ball well from 3. It was a bad night for everybody shooting the ball. Devo Davis stuck a couple of 3s, but he was off to the races shooting them in this game. 2 of 8. Ricky Council, I think 1 or 5, 6 or 7. I don't remember how many he took. But some of Ricky's were just, 28 footers early in the clock. That's open for anybody at all times. Any player can take a 28 footer with 24 seconds left on a shot clock. So he took those shots. So I think there's some question marks on decision making. I thought the decision making and thought process and how it evolved through the game very erratic for the Razorbacks, and it's not typical of what you see. Again, they're not a perfect team. We see stretches, but I thought an entire game where you had poor decision making. Now Arkansas fought back, fell I think behind by as many as 7 points. Was trailing by 5 at halftime, but had a good run to start the second half. A lot of that was Jordan Walsh making big plays. I think that's when Devo stuck a 3, but Arkansas eventually got a lead, and not only that, but when they did have their little flurry of 3-point makes, I think Council hit one. We mentioned Jordan Walsh having one. Devo hits 2. But in that little stretch there, Arkansas actually built up a 6-point lead. And then that's when LSU went on like an 11-2 run, regained the lead pretty quickly. And then Arkansas never could get back over the hump to tie it or take a lead. And a lot of that was that end of game free throw shooting. I said 2 of 5. It was more like 2 of 6 because you missed the front end of 1-and-1. LSU wasn't great at the line, but they stick to at the end. Another thing I thought was very interesting, Anthony Black gets a putback to put Arkansas back within 1 with about 21 seconds left. And LSU's got to inbound the ball. And I think it was somewhere in that stretch, but Arkansas is down a point, and they've only committed 5 fouls. So not only do you have to foul, but you got to foul twice. So you don't want to foul immediately out of a timeout after, you want to see if you can get a steal. And I thought Arkansas trapped. They tried to do what they could to get a steal. But they waited too long to foul it. And fortunately for Arkansas at that point, the LSU player not very wisely went and attacked the basket when they didn't need to score. They needed the clock was their opponent at that point. And Mekhi Mitchell made a play, blocked a shot. I think it was Mekhi. Ricky got the ball, maybe Ricky, but Arkansas got it. Ricky went the other way, pressed his luck, got into the paint, kind of a 1-on-3 or 4 there. And so now it was a 2-second game after the ball was lost out of bounds. Jordan Walsh trying to recover it on a strip. And now you had to foul twice with under 3 seconds left. So the clock at that point, you were done for if you were the Razorbacks. And that's basketball. But I thought that Arkansas didn't, once LSU broke that full court press, that Arkansas didn't foul. And again, they got lucky that LSU tried to score there. But I go back to decision-making and erratic decision-making in this game. That again was another head scratcher. It kind of worked in Arkansas's favor in the sense of LSU did something it shouldn't have done, but you don't coach or plan that the other team's going to make that kind of a mistake. The clock's your enemy at that point, and you got to stop it. So I thought there were several things that I thought Arkansas, took steps in the wrong direction, not only on the but in some of the decision making and planning in this game. The good news is we've seen Arkansas be awful starting SEC play. Ricky was not good whatsoever. His critical free throw ended up costing us. Yeah, I mean, he missed the front end of a 1-and-1. He was 1 of 2 at another trip. Anthony Black was 1 of 2 at another trip. And again, Arkansas didn't get the benefit of that second free throw because of the miss on the front end of the 1-and-1. So, again, Arkansas is not a good team out of the gates in SEC play. It's not an excuse. It's a fact. We know in the past, Musselman's turned to his bench and made tweaks to the rotation. I think it's a little early for that. We also need to see what's in store for Nick Smith Jr. How soon can he get back? A lot of people think he's done for the season or have said that. I think that was just not a very good rumor from the get-go. I can understand why people want to lean that way because he's kind of been back and forth, but he's trying to get 100%. He wants to play for the Razorbacks. And I think at some point we're likely to see that. How soon? Arkansas's got a week again between games, SEC home opener against a Missouri team that took number 19 Kentucky behind the woodshed today in Columbia. And it's a Mizzou team under Dennis Gates that's playing really good basketball. This is a tough league. You cannot go on the road like Arkansas did tonight and not, to me, it wasn't even as much about a lack of focus as I thought just horrendous decision-making in situations. And I put some of it on the coaching staff. I'm going to do that tonight. Without Devo, we get blown out. Well, here's the problem. You kind of put yourself in a situation where you're playing from behind, and you need big shots now. And so Devo made some big shots. But I think overall, him taking early shot clock threes, Ricky doing the same, Jordan a few times. He took some that were just wide open and off good ball movement. He's a guy that had been shooting. He was 3 of his last 6 from 3 coming into this game. But he took 8, so that's maybe a little too many for anybody on this team whose name is not Nick Smith Jr., and he's not in the lineup right now. These are the kind of games where I thought Arkansas might be in trouble without a Nick Smith Jr. and or Trevor Brazile. They're the only 2 players on this roster that are true 3-level scorers. They can get you in mid-range. They can get you in transition, above the rim, at the rim, half court in transition, and they can knock down some threes. No one else really does that. Ricky Council's a 2-level scorer. Get to the rim, mid-range. His mid-range was off tonight. Anthony Black, he'll knock down some threes. It's really not his strength, but he was the team leader in percentage coming in after 12 games. It's not a tiny sample size, But the other thing he does is score in transition or getting to the rim. He doesn't have a pull up or mid range game. That's not AB's game. And so sometimes it's easier for a team like LSU playing at home, the way it plays, grinding it down, keeping the score low. Sometimes it's easier to take certain things away when players don't have three goodies in their bag and only have two. And we talk all the time about Arkansas taking things away from opponents and their best players. Well, we saw something of that tonight with LSU. They really stayed in Ricky Council's grill. And I thought when he drove, he missed a lot of opportunities to get all the way to the rim. Some of it because he was loose with the ball, so he couldn't get to his finishing spot. And some of it was he bailed out the defense by pulling up, for a tougher mid-range shot. And sometimes he just hoisted a three. So he did not play his game, in my opinion, tonight. And when he tried to, he was just off. Sometimes that happens. But when you have multiple players off, Debo put up some numbers. He led the team in scoring. He had 6 rebounds, three steals. Council had those 2 late steals trying to help Arkansas. Graham played. Someone's asking about Graham. I mean, he wasn't very good when he got in there. I thought he played soft, and he made some mistakes. And everybody made mistakes in this game, but Graham, this was definitely. I mean, I think the more that he might have played in this game, Arkansas might not have had a chance to be in a position to win. It sounds like I'm picking on guys tonight, but I'm being honest, and I'm not saying Graham's not going to help this team. I've said before, I think there will be places and times that he can. But I thought he looked to me tonight like he did in other games where he struggled, like against Texas, where he was just a little overwhelmed, by pressure, by bodies, physicality and some other stuff. I thought he was a little soft when he was in there. Refs cost us there at the end, though. Despite all the mistakes, RC got absolutely mugged. Maybe, but we saw a lot of that at both ends and not a lot of whistles in this game. There just weren't a lot of fouls called or free throws resulting from fouls. 22 free throws attempted total. Usually that's what Arkansas does in a game. I didn't think there was a ton of home cooking at all in this. The football team I thought got roasted. I thought that was bizarre how off and lopsided that was. I didn't see that tonight in Baton Rouge in the basketball game. I think Arkansas, I still have question marks about the talent level at LSU. They're well coached. They've got good players. I don't know how good that team is going to be. Maybe they're going to be well coached enough. They've been in a lot of close games, and they find a way to win. That's been Arkansas's recipe, by the way, in league play. So you had 2 teams coming into this one where both of them made plays in ugly games at the end, and the home team came out on this. Arkansas taking 25 3-pointers in this game. Absolutely zero reason to do that. I see no justification for it. When Ricky is off, this team struggles. Well, I mean, I thought Anthony Black was off, especially defensively. Somehow he just kind of watched his guy go by him, and I think a lot of players did that. And it looked to me like they were trying to funnel LSU a certain way, but they weren't meeting those drives when they got them heading in the direction they wanted them to go. And usually they do that. They do a better job of it. And tonight I just thought, whether it was baseline or funneling them on the just outside of the horns on left and right side of the paint, they funneled them where they wanted to go, but then they lost contact. They didn't stay attached. And that's not typical of Arkansas. This LSU team's not elite. I mean, a guy like Hannibal's been around for a while, but he big boyed and bullied Arkansas late. And some of that was the way Arkansas was playing drives. And once a guy gets in deep, he's already half the battles won. And that guy made some tough finishes late in that game to help LSU win. I don't think Muss has won at LSU. Well, he hasn't. He's got 1 win against LSU when he's on the floor coaching away from Bud Walton Arena, and that was in the SEC tournament back in March of this year. We know that it was Keith Smart who was coaching this team while Muss was home resting. The one game he missed from shoulder surgery. So Muss gets credit for that win on his resume. But in truth, I mean, we're just talking facts. He hasn't won at LSU. He used to be an assistant coach there under Johnny Rhodes before he went to. I think it was right before he went to Nevada. I know he was at Arizona State. Then I think it was LSU, and then I think he ends up at Nevada. So, he hasn't beaten that team in Baton Rouge, and he's 1-1 against LSU in the SEC tournament, and then he's perfect. He's 3-0 the Tigers when they play at Bud Walton Arena. So that's the record, 4-4 overall now. Someone made that comment and it was accurate. But I mean, Muss has gotten the better of most coaches in this league when you look at it in most of the teams. And so, yeah, he's even right now against LSU, but Arkansas's program's been much better than LSU. In fact, there's a graphic they showed on during the telecast of the game that Arkansas's got the most wins since 2019, which is when Musselman came to coach the Razorbacks. So it's hard to argue against the success that Arkansas's had. At some point, you do think Arkansas is going to figure out how to get better starts in SEC play. Technically, though, they're 2-2 in first games under Eric Musselman in SEC play. It's kind of what happens after those first games, win or lose, where they still seem to be kind of stuck in the mud, and that's what you keep your eyes on. Again, Missouri's no joke, and they come in a week to Bud Walton Arena in Fayetteville, and this is an opportunity for Arkansas to correct things, get a win there. That's a good win if they can get it, and then you hope that you don't. Because Arkansas was 0-3 out of the gates last year, league play, 2-4 the year before that. Arkansas started 3-1 in Muss's first year in SEC play. The problem was Isaiah Joe got hurt and missed several games, and Arkansas quickly fell behind and ended up with losing multiple games in a row. I can't remember what it was, but they fell behind, and then when they got Isaiah Joe back, they finished pretty well in SEC play at the end, but they still had a losing record in league play. But when you looked at the first half of it, most of that losing was in the first half of SEC play. So 3 years in a row before this season, when you look at first half of SEC play, that's where Arkansas really struggles. And then, tonight you start 0-1. So, that doesn't mean that it's going to continue this way. In fact, Arkansas is going to have, I think especially we'll see with Nick Smith Jr. I said it recently. I wrote about this. I think they're a Final Four contender, even without Brazile, if they have Nick back. Without him, I still think it's a tournament team in all likelihood, but I have no idea what that SEC record is going to look like, especially when Arkansas goes on the road. Because I thought tonight they really played down. They had their opportunities to get back to their identity, and they couldn't do it for very long. They just kept going back to the 3-point shot and making weird decisions on angles they took driving on offense, and then on angles they didn't close out on defense that they normally do. And I'm sitting there thinking, is this game plan? And if it is, that there's an adjustment that needs to be made. And give it. And I haven't said much about LSU. I'm going to give that team some credit. That's a tough team. There was a lot of physical play, and they played their game. And I thought Arkansas helped them play their game. Arkansas got out of its own game. Again, Arkansas' strength is getting to the basket. Arkansas was fit. This was a team, Arkansas ranked 23rd in the country coming into this game in field goal percentage, right under 50%. From two, inside the arc, as physical as this game was, Arkansas was right at 50%. The problem was the 4 of 25 from three, which gets you down to 37% overall or just below that. But you gave that. You gave that away. You gave those possessions away. They were like turnovers. So in a 10 turnover game, it felt like 20 or 25 because of all those early threes and let's be honest, these weren't balls that were going down and just came out. It just wasn't Arkansas's night. This is not a good 3-point shooting team. A lot of those threes were ugly, way offline, and a lot of them came early in the clock. And that continued throughout the game. Usually when Arkansas does that, it's mostly a first half problem, and that gets ironed out at halftime. Did not get ironed out. And I think part of the problem was a couple of players hit some kind of early in that second half, and they felt like they wanted to keep putting them up. But it's not the strength of the team. You can't get to the free throw line if you're shooting threes. You can't get to the rim if you're shooting threes. That's what Arkansas excels at. And tonight, they didn't get enough 2-point attempts around the basket, and they certainly didn't get to the free throw line enough. And it's one of those games where you just got to keep putting pressure on the defense by driving to the basket. And even when Arkansas did drive to the basket, again, a lot of those possessions were discombobulated because of just poor handling of the ball, not necessarily resulting in a turnover, but a bad possession, which you're not getting a good shot on goal at that point. So, one game, that's the beauty of this one. I think the other beauty is what Jordan Walsh did tonight. This guy to me is stepping up in a way that really gives Arkansas a chance to be a really good team, just in terms of dealing with the loss of a Trevor Brazile. He's not Trevor Brazil. He's not a 6'10", but they both have those incredible wingspans plus athleticism, elite athleticism. And then, although Walsh was only 1 of 8 tonight from three, he was 3 of 6 going back the last 3 games, and someone who I think, kind of minimize the attempts, shrink those down a little bit. He may have some nights where he's 1 of 4, but he might have some nights where he's 2 of 4. And you want that from Jordan Walsh because he's doing other things now. He's starting to get more comfortable on putbacks, making little moves into the paint. He had some nice finishes tonight off his own dribble, where I thought that's where he's mainly struggled, was driving. But really good at putbacks, hitting some open threes. But until really lately, putting the ball on the deck and getting comfortable, getting to some spots and finishing with patience. I thought he was the best player for Arkansas tonight. He was 1 rebound away from a double-double. He made so many battle plays that we've seen from him lately, and I think that helps Arkansas. I thought Mekhi Mitchell took a bit of a step back tonight. I don't give LSU a lot of credit. I've seen this Mekhi Mitchell in Europe just turning the wrong way. He seemed like he understood where to go and had kind of learned some of that stuff. And tonight it was almost like he reverted. Joseph Pinion getting in. I'm surprised Muss didn't put Pinion in there when LSU moved his own. I mean, Muss is always playing what he's thinking defense at all times to begin with. And so, if he's got any question marks about players that he can't trust on that end, what you're talking about for a lot of coaches, for him, is not as much a priority. And I understand that. I can't argue with that. And the track record speaks for itself. It didn't tonight, but Pinion got in and got a chance. He got a shot up. He got a three. He was one of the misses from three, but we're not going to judge him harshly. He's not been in the rotation. That he was in a tough spot in a game where Arkansas couldn't get anything going from three in that first half. Yeah, we could use. Well, I keep getting notifications that are covering up the comments. Sure could use an Isaiah Joe now. Yeah, I brought his name up. There's no doubt about it. I mean, Arkansas hasn't really recruited shooters. You need probably 2 or 3 if you don't want to be the kind of three-point shooting team Arkansas is. You probably need at least 2 guys, maybe a third. Nick Smith Jr. is one. Pinion is, but if you're not going to play him, you can't make threes from the bench. So he may not be in a position, we've said this all along, to be in the rotation. So you've effectively can't count him now. At some point you will. And then I think the other thing is, when I look at it, Brazil was a guy that I thought was going to help Arkansas from three, and he's out. So it's still not a good three-point shooting team with all hands on deck, but you might not have a night like you did tonight. And again, I think the 3-level scoring, the lack of it, is what really hurt on this game. Council really became a no-level scorer. I mean, he had 13 points, so he did get some. I'm not going to completely not credit him, but I thought his downhill game is usually elite. It was less than average. His mid-range game is usually really good. It was way off. And then just everybody's decision to keep shooting threes was just a poor choice. Coaches are going to say, again, I'm going to say this: you can't just not take any. But your Arkansas Razorbacks, they came in averaging 15 attempts per game, and they took 10 more than that. They were on their way to doubling up that number if they could have, and that's a problem. And I thought, again, I thought Arkansas, and Anthony Black, I thought had an off night. He has had turnover problems. He had some early in this game, but I thought just some other stuff defensively. And some of the reads he was making on offense, some of his passes were just a little off target, even if they didn't result in a turnover. Guys taking weird driving angles instead of really putting pressure on LSU, kind of bailing them out. So it wasn't just hoisting all the threes, even when Arkansas drived. And I'm repeating myself now, but a lot of the drives, they just didn't get downhill like they normally do. And it wasn't because LSU was beating them to a spot necessarily. Just some weird, erratic decision-making at both ends, I thought. LSU is terrible, but we played at their level. Right. That's what I've been saying. I mean, you're playing at their level when you're not playing to your strengths. You're basically saying, okay, we concede. For whatever reason, we concede that we're going to, try to match you in three-point shooting futility. LSU wasn't very good either, 4-17. But typically that's a 36% team from three, so they're going to take some, believing they're going to make some. Arkansas knows what it is, and still stubbornly kept putting them up to the point where that became as big of an issue, that the turnovers and not defending drives well. And it sounds weird because it sounds like I'm just not giving LSU credit. I've seen this Arkansas team defend. I was shocked at how flat-footed they were sometimes and how big they allowed the berth for the drives and never closed on them. Or when they did, it was too late. I just thought that was we got to get our free throw percentage fixed. Well, some games it's been good. Arkansas actually had been improving there. Tonight, you didn't get enough attempts, and then when you got them, you didn't make enough. I mean, that in a 3-point loss and the way Arkansas shot at the end of that game, there's no doubt that the comment you made is correct. It just kind of was a double whammy. Not getting there enough, and then when you did, you didn't make them. LSU didn't shoot well from the line either, but they were +1, 6 out of 12 versus 5 out of 10. And then down the stretch, they knocked down 2 there at the very end. Might not have mattered. Arkansas didn't have much clock left. I think 1.8 seconds. But that really played an embarrassing loss. Long season ahead for this team. This is basketball. Unlike football, when you lose to a Liberty or that, those things stand out like an eyesore. We'll see what this LSU team ends up. But, in college basketball, playing on the road in a league like the SEC, you're going to see some ugliness. I mean, we saw Kentucky get thwarted. Auburn had to hang on to beat Florida. Tennessee goes on the road and almost loses to Ole Miss. They won, but it was one of those ugly. This is the life in college basketball at the high major level once you get into league play. And so is it embarrassing? I wouldn't call it embarrassing. That's not like a 2-10 LSU team. But from certain standpoints, I would agree that it was embarrassing. And what was embarrassing to me was Arkansas how bad Arkansas looked by not playing its game. You rarely see a team as well coached as Arkansas not make those adjustments at least by halftime, and typically they do. To get back to what it works best for them. Even if they're going to still struggle doing that, it's better than doing what won't work in the long run. And they stuck to that. To me, that was embarrassing because I think Arkansas kind of played into their own demise. And so anytime you write your own check for a loss, it's worse than the other team just being better than you that night. Did anybody really think LSU was just better than Arkansas? I thought Arkansas really helped right the end of this game and this result by playing a certain way at both ends all night long. I was surprised by it, honestly. But it is one game, and you can learn from it. How much they'll learn from it, we'll see because we don't know what's going to happen next. Go get some 3-point shooting. Tired of us sucking at threes. Opinion, that faded away. Defensively, if you look at this game, you could say, well, Arkansas wasn't bad defensively. No. The problem was, again, I thought the defense bailed LSU out of a lot of situations. Some of it was offensive rebounds where Arkansas just didn't secure the ball or fumble it out of bounds. Some of it was maybe they had a game plan to funnel drives a certain way. That's great. They always do. They didn't close on them. So that's out of Arkansas's character. If this is a big problem in Arkansas's defensive scheme, game in and game out, then it's just who they are. But that's not the case. But it was who they were tonight for some reason. Very strange to me. I thought that was odd. But again, Musselman may speak to this. I haven't seen anything that he said yet. I'm going to get to finishing up the game story, add some quotes a little later, and go back and watch his post-game press conference, which I haven't seen yet. But I'm interested to know what his thoughts are on this, and certainly we'll have a preview press conference with him for Missouri where he may talk about some of this stuff. I'm getting low on battery here. We're about 35 minutes in. I'm going to go until it. Actually, no, it's about to go. See if we can make it another 30 seconds. Hogvillenet YouTube Live. I hope you go to hogville.net for all of our written content, by the way. I typically talk that stuff up before I get this deep into it. A lot of excellent coverage for the Liberty Bowl. Arkansas prevails in triple overtime in a game they probably, ref-aided Kansas Jayhawks situation. I know that sounds like a homer. I don't know how people who don't have a dog in the fight wouldn't think the same. Maybe I'm wrong.